So what first drew you to casting?
What first drew me to casting? I wanted to be an actor. I grew up in Los Angeles. I have parents who are screenwriters, and growing up in that world, acting is kind of first and foremost what you think of, I think, when you think of entertainment. And so that's what I wanted to do. And my parents basically said, that's a great dream to have. You should pursue that, but not professionally. Especially as a child, we don't have time to take you to auditions. We don't want to be stage parents. And also, you have to make sure you really love it. So take classes, be in school plays. And then when you turn 16 and you can take yourself to auditions, then you can start auditioning for things. And so I started doing that. I auditioned for plays. I went to a school in Los Angeles where a lot of famous people's kids go. It's a school called Harvard Westlake, and I was too nervous when I started there in 7th grade to audition for the plays. And so I said, I'm going to ask if they need someone to help them with auditions, and then they'll see how talented I am and they'll cast me. And so I ended up reading opposite people in 7th grade during auditions, and they cast me, I believe, as one of the like townspeople in Shakespeare's As You Like It. And then the next year, I didn't get cast in anything from that, and I realized I wasn't actually that talented, but I still wanted to act. So I continued to take acting classes, and then I would do stage managing, and I would help with auditions all throughout the rest of middle school and high school. And then when I turned 16, I went on 2 auditions, one for Criminal Minds and one for the 10 Things I Hate About You TV show for co-star parts. And I didn't get either of them. And I realized that I just wanted to be famous. It wasn't actually acting that I enjoyed. It wasn't the learning lines and diving into a character and figuring out a backstory. I just wanted to show up and be told I was special. And my dad basically said, well, what you're talking about, the finding the special in people and feeling special but not having it be the basis of your entire personality, that is actually a job. It's called casting. Those are the people you've been reading for. You've basically been doing that. Whenever you read my scripts, you have ideas. Maybe that's something you'd be interested in. And I was in a very fortunate position. My dad was working for somebody whose wife was a casting director. Her name is Terry Taylor. She is now the head of Blumhouse Casting. And so I went and I interviewed for her when I was 17, and she needed an intern during the summer. And so I ended up interning with her, helping her in a couple movies. And then I got another internship with this fantastic casting director named Carmen Cuba, and she was doing the first Magic Mike in the summer of 2011. And basically, they told me what we need from an intern is we need you to look up actors shirtless and tell us if they look like strippers. And I was like, "Oh, this job is amazing." But I ended up really helping her transcribe these interviews from a movie she had done a long time ago, a Steven Soderbergh movie called Bubble, where he had cast real people that worked in a factory, I believe in Pennsylvania, to play fictionalized versions of themselves in this thriller that he had written and was directing. And I loved Carmen's approach to casting and the way that she wanted to just talk to people. You could do your audition, but then she wanted to talk to you and see who you were as a person. And I ended up staying at Carmen Cuba's office throughout the rest of high school and college as her intern. And then when I graduated from college, she offered me a job as her assistant. And I was her assistant for about 3.5 years. And then she was like, "You've only ever really worked for me. You should see what other offices are like. Not everyone does casting the same way. You don't have to do it like me. Let's find you somewhere else to learn." And I went and I worked for this amazing casting director, Alyssa Weisberg, where we did a CBS multicam called Happy Together. We did a TBS show called Chad, where Nassim Pedrad plays a 12-year-old boy. And then we did this show called Ginny and Georgia for Netflix. And then COVID happened and there was no work for anybody. And I did a lot of short films for friends, a lot of student films for USC, AFI, UCLA, places like that. And then got told by a casting friend of mine that the old head of Paramount Casting, Joseph Middleton, had left Paramount and was looking for somebody, and that I should apply for that job. And so I started working for Joseph in 2021 as his associate, and I worked with him on mostly Doug Liman projects and some other things, including an LD entertainment project called National Anthem, which is how I met the team behind Bone Lake. And then he partnered with me on a few movies, including National Anthem. And then we did a Universal movie together that came out about a month ago called Reminders of Him. We completed that last year, and I decided it was time to try and do this on my own after having some success doing some indies on my own. And here we are. That was kind of rambling, but that's my whole story.
No. You know what? Let me tell you, I know you think you were rambling, but you just covered a lot of my questions
Great.
all in one question.
Oh, perfect.
When you first receive a script or a breakdown from production, what's the very first thing you're looking for?
Yeah, so usually the way that I get projects is they've seen something that I've done before, or they've seen something I've worked on and figured, "Oh, well, we can't afford Carmen Cuba or Alyssa Weisberg or Joseph Middleton, so, like, let's see if the person that worked for them is interested." And so what's important to me is I always ask to see a script. I grew up with writer parents. Everyone in my family is a writer. I love to read. So I want to read your script, and what's important for me is I need to start having ideas for the roles. I need to start picturing people in these parts immediately. And then if I can do that, the next step is let's meet and chat and talk and see if the ideas that I saw when I was reading this align with your vision for your script and your project. Because so much of what casting is taste. And nobody's taste is wrong, but if they don't align, it's not going to be beneficial as a partnership. And generally, I am one of the first people that comes onto a project after a director, a writer, a producer. And so I want to read your script. I want to start to have ideas, and then I want to share those ideas with you, see who you were picturing, see if we can both think of people in that conversation that come up that hadn't come up before based on that. And then if that happens, then it seems like it's the right partnership. It's really especially an independent film and low budget independent film. It's
Mhm,
really a collaboration. It's important for me to be, and for the people that I'm working for us to have comfortable conversations where we can feel safe to throw out ideas and talk about why this might not be exactly what you pictured, but here's why I see it, instead of being afraid to say, this is kind of an out of the box idea. Don't laugh at me. Right.
mhm.
So that's what's important to me is I want to read your script, and I want to have a strong sense of the characters that you're looking for in the world you're trying to build.
Is there sometimes a bit of a challenge between what is clearly on the page versus what the director kinda has in mind?
I mean, my gut reaction to that is there shouldn't be. It should be clear. A script is a blueprint, and so it should
Mhm.
be clear what you're looking for. But yeah, I mean, so often we don't. I think a lot of times, especially actors, right, think, well, when I get an audition, I need to do exactly what they're looking for. And a lot of the times, nobody really knows what we're looking for until we see it. But we know what world we're trying to build. So it's important.
Yeah.
It's important for me that the director, the writer, the producers, we're all on the same page with the vibe that we are trying to create, because nothing, in my opinion, takes you out of a viewing experience more than being like, that person, even though they're good, they just don't feel like they would be friends with this person, or they wouldn't be in this situation. So that's what's important to me, is that we're all trying to create the same world.
Yeah, and, the reason why I asked that question, 'cause that wasn't even in my list of questions, but
Yeah.
the reasons why I ask is because you said something that triggered a thought. I was listening to an interview a few weeks ago, and they were speaking about a Tales from the Crypt film called Demon Knight, and they were specifically speaking about the Jada Pinkett character in
Mhm.
that film. I don't know, are you familiar with that film?
I know of it. I have not seen it, but I know, I recognize the name when you say it, and I type it in, and I'm like, yeah, I know that.
Oh, okay, great, great. So the thing is that Jada Pinkett wasn't originally supposed to play that character.
Mm.
They had in mind for that character, Cameron Diaz.
Huh.
So as you were speaking, I'm sitting here going, then how in the heck did they go from Cameron Diaz to Jada?
Mm.
That is not even the same. I mean, I wouldn't see it as being the same. As a filmmaker myself, I
Mhm.
wouldn't. In a conversation where I say, "Hey, can we? What about Cameron Diaz?" Oh, kind of, sort of, yeah. But as a good backup, it would be Jada Pinkett. Like I wouldn't see that being a conversation.
Sure. I just feel like I want you to finish your thought. Sorry to interrupt, but I feel like
Oh,
I
uh-huh.
do see there is an intenseness to both of them, and a sureness to their identities, that while their identities are very different and they are very different actors and they are very different people, they come from very different places, I do see there can be something, there's a strength in both of them that feels kindred to me.
Mhm.
So I can see that.
Okay. And speaking of that, are you looking at psychology, physicality, energy? Like what defines the role for you and how you're gonna cast it?
That's such a good question, and I get asked that a lot, and I don't have a good answer to it, right? 'Cause so I teach a lot of classes too, and so often I get asked like, "Well, what do you respond to? What's a good tape?" And it's not helpful to just say like, "Good talent." I don't know really the answer to that. It just feels right, and I've just been doing it now long enough that I feel confident in trusting my gut. Um, and just knowing that person feels it just feels like it clicks. It's all a puzzle that you put together, even if you're putting together a project where there's one clear lead as opposed to an ensemble piece like Bone Lake where there are 4 leads. Um, no matter what, it's a puzzle that you're putting together and it just starts to click at some point and you just start to realize like these people all work and if you take one out, none of them work. And that's it's just a push and pull that you learn as you do it. It's why there is the job of a casting director. I am we are specialists in this. Um, and so I can't quite I'm not trying to be secretive. I'm not trying to gatekeep.
Mhm.
I don't know what that is. It's
Mhm.
just something I have in me that I think all casting directors do this is why we got called to this job. It's why I'm not an actor. It's why I'm not a director or producer or a writer. It's why I got called to this.
Yeah. And I know it's probably a mixture thereof, just wondering what the mixture is in terms of percentages. How much is of casting is instinct versus analysis?
It's hard to separate. It's also especially hard for me to separate. I have both a film and a psychology degree. And so I think that there's no I it depends on the project and it depends on the role and there isn't a standard, it's this amount of this and this amount of this other thing that makes it right for what I'm doing. It's
Mhm.
really it's as unstable as everything is in entertainment. This is a very unstable. There's no playbook. There's no I did it this way on the last project, so I do it this way for all of my projects. You have to be malleable and a little bit go with the flow. Um, and figure out what the process is gonna be on each project and on each role.
Yeah. What makes a character castable versus difficult to kind of cast?
It's funny because it's actually hard in my and again, I can only speak for me and how I cast things, but in my experience, it's actually harder to cast something that is really clearly written and defined. It's really hard to cast something that's based, if it's a writer that it's not a biopic, but it's inspired by them or someone they know, those roles are often really hard to cast because they're comparing it to a real person. And then they're saying, "Well, they're not that person," and it's like, "Right, no, this has become its own thing that is inspired by, but if you want that person, then make a documentary." One of my favorite directors that I've ever had the privilege of working with is Doug Liman, not just because his movies are incredibly fun, and incredibly well made, but because I always like to start my projects with a casting kickoff call, who are you picturing? Anyone living or dead that you could have in this role? And we would do that with Doug, but every time we did, he'd be like, "I don't know, like, show me people. What do you think?" And if we ended up finding someone that we were like, "This is a really out of the box idea. It doesn't seem to line up with anyone else that we've brought in for this, but there was something really intriguing, but it doesn't fit what's written right now." He was always open to being like, "Well, if the performance is really good, I will edit the character to fit what we need it to." Um, and so it's easier when you're more open than having a rigid idea. You think it would be easier to have a rigid idea of what you're looking for. That would make it an easier casting process, but I have found it is easier when you're a little bit more open, when you have just a general vibe you're looking for, and then
Yeah.
willing to adjust to the person. Because at the end of the day, there are so many talented actors in the world, and there are probably so many people who can do this role, right? And so the question becomes, why am I hiring you to do it? What do you bring from your own life that sheds something interesting? And so if you as a writer, director, producer are narrow focused in what you're looking for, you don't see the broader what somebody can bring to a character that maybe you hadn't thought about because you didn't live their life.
Yeah. And I don't wanna put you on the spot and make you name any names or anything, but could you give me one of the roles that was the most difficult for you to cast? Why it was so difficult for you to cast?
Huh. Well, there's it's I feel I there's no specific one, and I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna say the opposite, so it'll be confusing. Bear with me. I think the most difficult ones are the people that are inspired by real people. I've had the pleasure and the privilege to work on a few things like Just Mercy, and All the Money in the World and National Anthem, and these projects that are real people. Um, and those roles are really hard to cast because it's also people I don't necessarily know, and so I don't know the essence of you, and so I have to find it. But at the same time, this movie I did a few years ago called Thelma is also real people, and that was really easy for me because I know that family really well. And so when I read the script, I was like, "Oh, well, Josh Margolin, writer director, this guy Fred Heckinger is basically you. I've known you since I was a kid. We grew up together. We went to high school and college together. Like this actor has all of that." And then I was, lucky enough to have a team that just trusted me on that. And they said, "If you see it, we see it." He hadn't really done anything but White Lotus at that point, so I didn't have any ammo to prove it. But I was lucky enough that they were like, "Well, we hired you for what you see, and so we trust that." Um, but yeah, I think casting people, real people, is really hard,
Mhm.
or people inspired by real people.
Have you ever strongly believed in an actor that the director didn't like, they didn't see it at first?
Yes, that happens, I think, quite often. I mean, that's the I think my husband would agree with me that that is my thesis of life is I am always right, and I just have to wait for people to get there. Um, no, that is, I think, a lot of what, especially casting bigger projects, studio projects, is because, studio projects especially care about name value, and so if you're bringing someone that's lesser known but really interesting and really talented, it's a harder sell because they're like, "Well, how do people don't know who that person is? How do I sell that?" Um, One of the greatest lessons I was ever taught was by my last boss, Joseph Middleton, which is you have to know which battles to fight, because if you go hard for everybody, you stop getting listened to. And so I only present ideas that I feel confident in, that I'm excited by, that I want to watch. But sometimes I have to step back and say, "It's your movie. You hired me to help you make your vision. You're not seeing what I'm seeing. Hopefully you change your mind and we get there, but this isn't the one that I want to die on a hill for." Because there's either another role that's to me more important, or this is a relationship I don't want to mess up. So you just have sometimes you have to concede and say, "Yeah, you want to make a bad decision. I guess that's fine." you know, hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. I'm not very good at letting go, but I'm trying.
Well, and I know that battle, it sounded like inside of what you were saying, on one end of that, that was the conversations you had with producers, and on the other end, directors. Um, but overall, how does your dynamic with producers differ from your relationship with the director?
It depends. It depends on the project. The majority of what I do is $2 to $3 million independent features. So the writer director is usually the same person, and then their producers are usually their friends. Um, and so it's a lot easier. It's a lot we can just have conversations. We're all trying to build a career. We're all trying to learn things together. We're all still relatively young. So we can really talk. They're willing to listen. I'm willing to listen. It's more of a battle in bigger studio projects when you're working with people that are gonna say, "Well, I know better than you because I've been doing this longer." And it's like, and that's not always true. Sometimes it's true, and so I try and listen to it, but it's not always the case that just because you've been doing it for 30 years, you know more about who people wanna watch. So I try not to get defensive about it. It's more just like, "Okay, well, here's what I'm seeing. Here's, I try and use psychology and build a case for the people that I like and why I like them and why I think other people will like them. I approach all of my conversations with producers as it's an actor's job to sell themselves to me. It's my job to sell you to the writer director. It's the writer director's job to sell you to the producers. It's the producer's job to sell you to the studio. It's the studio's job to sell you to the world. It's everybody's job to make somebody's job easier. And so it's just important to remember that we are all on the same page. We're all trying to get a movie made. Let's all have civil conversations and respect what we all know. And if there is a place to be educated, great. And if there isn't, then just back off and say like, great, you know what you're talking about, and I don't care to learn, so I will just listen to that, right? Um, yeah. Again, it just depends on the project, and that's why I enjoy independent film. There's more freedom, there's more conversations, there's more building something together in independent film, but you also don't get paid and you don't get healthcare on independent film. So
Yeah.
I trade that. I trade the freedom and the camaraderie for that sometimes. And that is driven by producers.
Now, I noticed you mentioned the chain, right? From actor all the way through distributor, right?
Mhm.
Uh, do streaming platforms sometimes influence who gets cast?
It depends on when they come on, right? Like, did HBO get a say in who was cast in Heated Rivalry when it was a Crave only show? No, they bought a show that was already completed. For the second season, yes, they will have a say in it. Um, so it depends on when they come on. When I've done Netflix or Amazon shows or movies, they are straight to streaming. They're already owned by Netflix or Amazon, and so, yes, they have their own casting departments, and they very much have a say. They've started to build their own lists of people they care about that they would support, and you just you come in as the casting director of that project, and you just try and beat those ideas. Um, but if it's something that was acquired, like, Thelma, the movie that I did a few years ago with June Squibb and Fred Heckinger's on Hulu, but they bought a completed movie, so they had no say, and Magnolia, who was our distributor, had no say in who we cast. We had done that all before.
Mhm. When you I know, independent is wholly different, right? But,
Mhm.
with the studio side of it, do you think casting has become more business driven kind of over time?
I think it was for a bit, and then they saw that that wasn't working, that people didn't just wanna see the same faces and the same things doing the same things we know they can do. Audiences like to be surprised by performances, so I think it's going back to what are some interesting new ideas, new takes, new places to look. Um, I think it depends on what you're going to what a movie's being made for, you know? I think a big action movie, potentially a Marvel movie or something like that, like, it's not necessarily they're not looking to discover people necessarily. Sometimes they do, but it's more, what is the wider audience, what is the world looking for? It's not just a niche audience, and so you need just the recognizable people that will sell your movie anywhere in the world because they'll go see this movie, and if they don't speak the language that it's in because they're like, "Oh, I wanna see, Tom Holland as Spider-Man." But I do think that it's changing a little bit. I think that with the comeback of these, 5 to 10 million, 10 to $20 million studio rom-coms that we used to have in the 90s and 2000s, people are more interested in seeing newer faces or a musician playing something, or, a TV actor, someone you only know from a TV show being the lead of a movie, that kind of thing, or like the guy you think is the best friend, we can now put him as a lead. So I think it's changing. I think it's changing back to more interesting new ideas as opposed to just using the people we know work.
So, how did you come on to Bone Lake?
So I did a movie with LD Entertainment, Mickey Liddell and Peach Lehman, in 2022 called National Anthem, which was a Luke Guilford beautiful movie about the queer rodeo scene in Arizona, inspired by his life. And then I did that with my then boss, Joseph Middleton. We were co-casting directors on that. And then a year later, they came to me with this movie and they said, basically, we loved working with you on National Anthem. This movie is an even smaller budget. We know we can't afford Joseph. Would you be interested in doing it? And I was like, yeah, I really like you guys. This sounds fun. And that's how the conversation started because we already had a shorthand. I had already worked with these producers, so I knew what they were like and what actors they responded to. And so I was like, I enjoy having conversations and building a cast with you. We've done that before. Let's try and do this very different thing.
Now, I know you said you've already worked with them before, but what was unique about casting this project compared to their last or
Yeah.
most of your others?
This project is really I mean, it's a four-person movie. It's four people in a house for an hour and a half. I mean, for a week in the movie, but an hour and a half of your life watching it. Each person is equally the lead. Without any spoilers, two people had to feel like a family, and two people had to, they all had to feel like a group that made sense together with these two different pairs in them as well. And so that was really exciting to because it was like we can't just cast one person at a time. We have to do it all together. Um, when I came onto it, Alex Rowe was already attached. So it was more, I did have that framework of what has to be, we have to fill out the four rest, like the other three to feel like they belong with him. But also he has to feel like he belongs with them. We're not building a movie around him. He's just already he's the corner puzzle piece that we already have. And now we have to fill out the rest of it. And that was just really appealing. And I had also never done a body horror movie. And that just interesting and fun.
Yeah.
The LG Entertainment's pitch to me was, we want it to be a movie where couples go on date night and they come out of it feeling disturbed and also kind of turned on. And I was like, that sounds really fun. I want to make movies that are fun.
I mean, outside of that kind of strategy of how you were casting a movie, what were the biggest challenges to casting the film?
Honestly, the budget. The budget was hard. It was, I believe budgets always go up. So I don't know what the end total budget was, but it was, we wanted shiny people. We wanted exciting names that people would recognize, faces that people would recognize, but we didn't have tons of money to throw around. So it was finding creative ways of approaching people and getting them interested. So then by the time we got to the money, they couldn't say no. They had already basically invested in it. That's the fun of indie film is you get people excited and then you say, also we'll pay you $1. And they're like, well, I've already decided in my head that I want to do this, so I can't say no now.
Were there any roles that took longer than expected to kind of get them right?
The role of Sage took the longest, which is interesting. I had thought, honestly, as I said, Alex came with the movie, so I had nothing to do with putting him in it. Although I would like to take credit for it because I think he's fantastic. The guys came together faster. They are written simpler, and it is it's a movie. It is a movie about the two women, and the men are kind of just there to bolster them. And so those roles, Marco and Alex, came together pretty quickly. And then I thought Sin was going to be really hard, and it was. But finding the balance of your final girl, finding someone that you do want to root for and that you can cheer for when they kill people, is really hard.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because there has to be, there's a level of wanting to take care of them. You need the little bit of like the doe-eyed, delicate person, but then you also need to believe that they will survive this. Otherwise, you tap out. It's what I think it's why Samara Weaving, everyone is always so amazed by what she can do in movies like Ready or Not, because she has this delicateness, and then suddenly she like brings out this badass bitch, and you're like, yeah, I want to see you like tear someone's face off. And so it was hard to find that,
Yeah.
but I think we succeeded in Maddie Hassan.
No, you definitely did. Well,
She's
and
bad.
speaking of that, what was the moment during casting where you knew, like, yeah, the film finally came together?
I never know until I see it, and I'm in a room with other people that know nothing about it, and I can listen to how they're reacting. Um, so I never really feel confident, fully confident in anything that I put together. But for this one, it was when we did a chemistry read, with was it a chemistry read or was it just with me? I don't remember. With Andra Nikita, who plays Sin. Um, and she came in and we just talked to her for a few minutes, and she was the last role that we cast, but not the hardest one. We just needed to know who else was surrounding it to really figure out who we wanted. And she came in and it was just like, okay, now all four of them make sense. It just felt, it's another thing where this isn't a helpful answer, but it was just you could feel it in the Zoom room. We were all just like, okay, this is our movie. These four people belong together, and we needed this one last piece to make it feel right.
Yeah. So I mean, I want to go back just a little bit. So you're with most of your projects, you're sitting at a screening
Yes.
and you are unsure until the moment like you can kind of feel the room out.
Yeah. There is always, in my experience, there does just always seem to be a moment when someone is right that the room just like stills. Nobody can take their eyes off the screen. Even if it's just me watching a tape alone on my computer, it's like my dogs get quiet. It's like everything suddenly, it's like the world just like becomes my screen, and I can't take my eyes away from it. And that happens. It's never just one person. There's always a few people that happens with. Um, and then you build the ensemble, and then you find the one ensemble, which is what happened here, where it was just like, okay, like feels like a breath, like a big exhale, which is like settled. It just feels, it just clicked. It's the hard part of this industry is I can't put into words what that moment is because it is just a creative process. And yet we are all in a business. And so everyone wants to know the formula, but there really isn't one. It's just, it feels right.
I find that I know, like, for a lot of filmmakers, they start out, you think you've written the best script in the world. You're on set, you're having fun, you're in the editing room. Some things work, some things don't, but for the most part, you still believe you got a masterpiece. And then it isn't until you walk into the room where somebody who has nothing to do with the project is going to see it that you go, oh man, I really hope Manos Hands of Fate is still the worst movie that's ever been made. You know?
Mhm.
Um, but is that even after you saw the Zoom call, even after everybody is patting you on the back and saying, "Oh man, such a great job. I wouldn't have
So it
even
wasn't
thought of this
until
person or
the
that
premiere
person."
when I went and I heard the room reacting to everything that I was like, "Yeah, I did. I nailed this." It
Yeah.
wasn't until I had my husband sitting next to me, jumping at all of the jump scares and reacting to everything because he knew nothing about the movie, and I hadn't told him anything about it. It wasn't until that I was like, "Yeah, we did this."
So, what do actors consistently get wrong in auditions? I know that's a hard left, but,
No, but I think trying to anticipate what it is we're looking for. If you got the audition request, if you got the sides and we asked you to read for us and read for this role, we've already decided there's something in you that's right for it. You don't need to guess what we're looking for. Come in and do what you wanna do with it, and I think that people get tied up in trying to get it right when there isn't a formula for getting it right. It just is right or it isn't. So, relax into the fact that you got the audition, therefore we believe that you could be right for this role. What are you going to do with it? Show me why I should hire you.
mhm. And then let's say they're on the right track now, right? They're not trying to
Mhm.
anticipate. What once you hit the button and it's record and they're on, what instantly stands out in a good or a bad way from their performance that you're watching?
It's that's auditions are such a different skill than acting on a set, right?
Mhm.
Doing an audition, you're probably in your own living room reading with a friend or reading over Zoom with me, and I am not as much as We talked about at the beginning, I tried to be an actor, I am not an actor. Um, and so it's a very different world. You're not really seeing anything. And so for me, what's important is that I believe that you are really seeing things, that you are really listening. I love, and this doesn't happen as much anymore because I don't really do anything in person. I don't have an office. So I mostly do self tapes. What I really miss is the moment in an audition when someone is so engaged with you that they forget their line. I love watching you try and find it. I don't want you to tap out and say, "Oh, I lost my line. Can we start again?" Stay in it and find it. You've done the prep work. You know where the story's supposed to go. You have experience, hopefully, with doing improv, so you can rely on your instincts. I love watching people try and figure that out because that's what a real conversation feels like. So
Yeah.
that's what I wanna watch on screen is if if you're coming if the scene starts and it's you seeing something in front of you, I don't need to see it, but I wanna really believe that you are seeing it,
What
that you are really in the world. I know you're not, you're in your living room, but, like, I wanna believe that you have created something around you.
yeah. What makes you remember an actor after they leave the room?
So many things. I mean, the unhelpful answer is talent, but what does that mean? I think it's something in your eyes, it's a fire in your eyes that makes me remember you, even if you weren't right for it. Right, doesn't mean you're bad, just doesn't mean you weren't just I'm not looking to buy what you're selling for this one thing today. Sometimes I go to the supermarket and I want apples, and sometimes I go in and I don't. Like, it's not a judgment on you, it's just, are you right or not? But I remember people even if they weren't right for what I read them for because of a fire in their eyes.
Do you have a recent example of that?
Do I ever um, trying to think of something that people can see. I mean, yeah, like, when I read Tyreek Withers for Reminders of Him, there was just something in just the way that he came on even before he started reading. There was both a joy and an intensity to his eyes and his physicality that I will remember forever. There was just this energy before he even said a word that I could feel through the screen. And he was in, like, Florida, and I was in LA, and I could feel it, and it was like, "Okay, like, I don't even know if I need to see him read, I just like this energy that's coming at me."
Yeah.
And then, as we went through the process on that and he became one of the top choices and then the top choice and then the lead of the movie, opposite Micah Monroe, we learned so much about him. We learned his personal connection to that story. He had been a football player who had an injury. His brother had sadly died in a drunk driving accident. He had been a big part of raising his nephew. And so I was like, oh, well, that's the energy that I felt is just that I knew none of that for a couple months, but I felt that you had some sort of deep connection to this world. And that was interesting to watch.
What can directors do to get the best results from you?
That's a good question. I mean, I think you have to remember why you hired a casting director and why that casting director ended up being me or whoever you hired. What was it? The same as why how can I trust the actors that I put in front of people that I put on screen? You just have to say I there was something I believed in here. So even if we're butting heads, even if we're not agreeing on something, let's go back to the core of what did we originally connect about? Why did we choose each other? And then we'll figure it out together. And that's yeah. Trusting that I know what I'm talking about, that you know what you're talking about, and therefore in the Venn diagram of both, we can create a full picture.
Okay. And so there are a lot of aspiring filmmakers in this who will be viewing this video, and many of them will just be stepping up to a league big enough to work with a casting director. What should those producers understand about the casting process that they most likely don't?
It's not as clear as you think it's going to be, and there is no playbook for it. You're gonna go into it thinking you know how it's gonna play out, thinking you know what you're looking for. And again, it's what I had said earlier, just being open to being surprised. even if that's not where you end up landing. If you end up landing with exactly who you thought you were going to, great, but be open to learning about other people and about other options and possibilities and approaches.
And for aspiring casting directors, if someone wants to become a casting director,
Oh, that's
where
a
should
great
they start?
I don't know. Um, I was incredibly lucky to have grown up here and to have been told so young that this was a job, right? And then to have had the connections and the ability to do it. I also was in a very lucky position to be able to do unpaid summer internships, which, a lot of people aren't in a financial position to do, and also you actually, like, legally can't do anymore. You have to get paid or college credit, and a lot of past directors don't get paid enough to pay an intern. So, really the way to do it is to just do it, which is not helpful, but it's also the advice I give to actors and writers and whatever. It's like the barrier to entry is low now. You can anyone has a phone with a camera that's good enough to make a movie, go cast your friends' things. Um, just watch a lot of things and start to look up, "Oh, I really liked that ensemble." You'll start to find the people that keep assembling the ensembles that you like are generally the same people. And then you know what your taste in actors are. And so really I would say the place to start is by just diving in and doing it. Do short films, cast local theater, just watch everything that you can. Um, and then, I think the canned answer, which is valid, is get a job at an agency. The easiest entry point, go work in a mailroom, because then you start to learn the lingo. Um, you start to learn when someone says, "Can you check that avail?" You know what that means, and you don't have to like hold anyone up by being learning because there isn't. You can't go to school for casting. Um, but yeah, I mean, I would say if you want to be a casting director, you just start to look up the casting directors that you want to be and read about their process and look at how they started, and then just find ways to cast things because the only way to get work is to have work. And so you're going to do a lot of free work before you get paid for it, unfortunately. But you have to just find the opportunities to do it because nobody's going to just believe that you can. You have to prove it and say, it's the same as like an actor's reel, which is like, it just shows me that you've been in something, that you know how to do, be in front of a camera, learn lines. It's the same for a casting director. If you're looking to be a casting assistant, you want to interview and get hired by a casting director. They want to know that you know what you're doing. And so you just have to be able to prove it by having done it.
Yeah. Well, I want to be very respectful of your time.
You're
So
welcome.
I'll wrap things up with this question. When casting is done right, what does it do for a film?
I think it's why it took us so long to get an Oscar because when casting is done right, you don't notice it. It just feels easy. It doesn't feel like anyone was shoved into a spot where they don't belong. It just feels like that came about naturally. Of course, these people all ended up in this one room together. That isn't how it ever works. But when it's done well, an audience doesn't notice that it is something that had to be done. It just feels like it came about, um, which is why I think it's so hard to explain what it is that we do because people are just like, well, that just felt good and everyone felt like they belonged together. And you're like, yeah, and it took a lot of work and a lot of shuffling to get that there, but you didn't see that. And I don't want you to see it or feel it because then you're not along for the ride of the movie. Um, but yeah, I think good casting is invisible, unfortunately. And that feels like a
Well,
soundbite to end on.
well, I want to thank you. I think that was a perfect place to end on. I want to thank you so much for your time and your honesty and just being very, very open to, the questions and providing the advice and, you know, giving this audience a big heads up. I appreciate it. And I'm very much sure that my audience appreciates it as well.
Well, it was my pleasure. I'm so glad you reached out. This was so fun. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a
Gosh, so have
nice
a
one.
good rest of your day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye bye.